everybody, and welcome back to my channel. And if this is your first time, welcome, and if you're a returning viewer, welcome again. So tonight I'm back at my close to home site. Close to home is kind of relative, it's about 45 minutes away. And we're going to really go back to basics. We're going to shoot Orion with a DSLR camera, a lens, and a tripod. So let me get right into going over the equipment that you'll need, and it's not going to be very much. So let's go over the equipment that I'm going to be using. First up, you're going to want to have a DSLR camera body if you're going to follow along. This is a Canon 60D. Anymore you can get these for a couple of $100 all day long, really. I have a Rokinon 135mm f2 lens. I showed this in a previous video that I shot M45 with it. I have a Manfrotto tripod, and this one I've never used before. It has a fluid head on it, so we're going to hope that it's going to make things easier and the tripod isn't sticky when I'm trying to adjust over and over. And last up, I'm going to be trying a Exterminator bot mask that's designed for the 135. And that's about it. I mean, this video is really about to show that anybody can do astrophotography. Orion rises about midnight, so it's going to be a little bit, but we're going to get shooting. Okay, so you're going to want to start out with ISO roughly around 1600. You could shoot anywhere. I normally shoot anywhere from 800 to 1600. I'm going to be shooting in bulb because you guys are going to want, well, these little fellas here, I know it's upside down. There we go. You're going to want an intervalometer like this one. We're going to be shooting probably 1 to 2 seconds, but you don't want the camera to shake every time you hit the button on it. So we're going to go through some menu settings. You're going to want, first of all, to be shooting in RAW. Release shutter without card, I always set that to disable. You don't want to start shooting with nothing to save it to, that'd kind of suck. Your flash, disable that. And I leave it on auto white balance. Color space, sRGB, that all looks good. Nothing there that we need to do. Nothing there. Your histogram is an RGB, which I am going to have to figure out how to pull that up. I believe it's an info button here. Sensor cleaning. If your camera has this, make sure it's disabled. That's not a good thing, because with your flats and whatnot, that could really screw it up. And nothing there that we're going to need. Long exposure noise reduction, I turned that off. And I think we are good to go on all that. Okay, so now we're going to focus. I'm not sure how well you guys are going to be able to see everything that I got going on here. It's kind of dark, but I'm going to point at a bright star. Alright, so I'm just going to take an exposure here. Let's see where we're setting. Yeah, not the greatest. Now let's zoom in here. Now I'm going to put it in live view. I don't know how well you guys can see that, but it's looking fairly decent. So now we will center our target. And I'm going to set my intervals on this. Not intervals, but how many exposures I'm going to take. I think I'm going to start out at we'll try 20. Okay, so we're going to try to set it at 20 frames. Okay, so about every 40 frames or so it's looking like we're going to want to readjust. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to do this a little differently than I normally would since it's so dark out here. I can look through my viewfinder and just put it back where I had it. Let's start the next set. And we're going to do this over and over and over. Now, this is kind of brutal doing this. I would recommend probably at least 1,000 or 2,000 frames, but we'll see how far I get tonight. And your flats, you want to lower your exposure or raise your exposure until your histogram is centered. Your dark flats, if you're going to take those, just put the cap on after that again. Don't touch your settings from what you had them at the flats and take them. Your darks will be the same as your lights, which we just got done doing. And your biases, I'm going to set the exposure as fast as I can and take as many frames as possible, probably 200 to 300. And that's it for calibration frames. Okay, so I ended up shooting for, I believe, a couple of hours. I ended up with 1,444 frames, which isn't too bad. I was expecting more of around 1,000. At 2 seconds and 2 second intervals, I ended up with just under an hour of data. Now, we'll apply a simple auto stretch to a single frame here in Pixinsight. Now, even at 2 seconds, the stars are getting a little bit stretchy, but that's nothing we can't deal with. Now, I debated on what programs to use with this to show how to stack, what programs to show how to edit. Now, I wanted to go with free programs if possible, but so that's why I'm going to use Siril to stack instead of Pixinsight. Normally I manually stack in Pixinsight, but it's not a free program. For the processing end of things though, I am going to have to use Pixinsight, and simply because I just don't feel like I'm proficient enough to show something like GIMP that is a free program. Or even Siril, you can do background extraction in Siril, or you know, color calibration. You can practically edit the whole thing in that, but there again, I just don't feel like I'm proficient enough. So in the free program, I am going to show how to stack your frames if you've taken frames just like I have here. It's pretty easy. I'm just going to use a script, and how you're going to want to set up your files and wherever you have them saved at are basically just like this. You want a folder for your biases, a folder for your darks, a folder for your flats, and a folder for your lights. Now with your lights, I would recommend going through each one of them, and the main things you're looking for here, and this is going to look terrible when I click on this, because you have to have an extension to see a CR2 file to begin with, and it does this to it. But just go through, make sure that it's framed how you want. You know, each frame is going to move like this, but as long as it's close, we're going to have to crop the edges. You will get stacking artifacts. I mean, obviously, if your object's completely out of frame, you're going to want to delete those. If you have clouds go through, you're going to want to delete those. Any stars that are horribly misshapen, delete them. Anything that could possibly ruin your final integration. So once you go through all those, they'll be in your lights folder. And I believe, and I'm not quite sure about this, if I'm wrong, somebody can correct me, that's fine, but your first image in here will be your reference frame. I think that's the way it used to be. Not sure there, but I'm pretty sure it is. So whatever your framing is here are what your images are going to stack to. You can pick a frame that you feel is better, has rounder stars, you know, is framed better in any way, and just make sure it's first in the folder. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do here, now that we got everything in its correct folders, is we're going to go up to the home button here, and you're going to set your home location. Mine will be right here. Just click open. Now we're going to run a simple script on this. Now, if you just downloaded this program, which I will provide a link down in the description, you won't necessarily have all these in here. You can add different scripts on here. You can add scripts without calibration frames, you know, with flats, with just flats, I believe. But the one we're going to use is OSC processing. So we're just going to click that. It'll start running. First it'll convert all the files, stack all your calibration frames, like your flats, your darks, and your biases. Now, one thing with this is having that many frames, 1,444. In my case, you're going to have quite a bit of disk space on this for it to successfully do it. And this is going to take quite a while to stack this. So be aware of that. And it's going to create a big folder. After it's done, I always delete that processing folder because it's huge. But yeah, we'll come back after it's done. And okay, so now we have our results, and once it's done, it will simply just put your results in this folder here. I've already moved them, but just drag and drop it into Siril, and it'll be result and some numbers on it. So what you want to do, right now it's showing it in linear. This is normal, you know, the way it looks. So you can give it an auto stretch. You can see exactly what it looks like, and you could either start editing it from here, or if you do have Pixinsight and you wanted to follow along, you could follow along with me. I'm going to move on over to that now. So here's our result. I'm going to give it a simple auto stretch, an unlinked auto stretch, so you don't want this little paperclip thing here selected. Make it a bit bigger. Okay, so the first thing we're going to run on this is we're going to crop it. And the main thing we want to do with cropping is we want to take all these stacking artifacts along the edges out. So I'm going to go up to Process, Geometry, and Dynamic Crop. Probably want to crop it something like this. That looks fairly decent to my eye. I think most of the stacking artifacts will be taken out. Just click that. Now we're going to do background extraction. So what I'm going to use here, you could use automatic background extraction or dynamic background extraction, but I'm just going to use Pixinsight's gradient correction. I'm going to leave it at the default settings, and this is going to be a kind of a fast edit, so I'm not going to really check it and stuff. If it looks good to my eye, then we're not going to repeat it. Just drag that over. Okay. Yeah, so that does look pretty good. Gonna close that out. The next process I would normally run is Blur Exterminator. This is a paid program. Blur Exterminator, Noise Exterminator, and Star Exterminator are all paid. There's ways that you can do this without these programs. It's just a little longer and a lot more involved that I'm going to get into in this video anyways, but just know there's ways to do it. And what this is going to do, this is going to fix these stretchy stars that we got. It's going to sharpen up our objects and just make everything overall just look better. Okay, now that that's complete, and you can see what a huge difference this made on the stars. They're all nice and tight now. So we'll close that out. And we'll see what Noise Exterminator does. Normally I like to run this in linear, but certain data sets I've found that sometimes it just works better to run it after the stretch, oddly enough. So we'll see what it does with this data set. And you could also run it in just a preview as well. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to head up to Script, Image Analysis, and Image Solver. And what this is going to do is it's going to give this entire image coordinates. So my focal length is wrong here, so I'm going to want to set this to 135. Pixel size looks correct. The date's correct. So I'm going to search M42. Hit OK there. Hit OK here and run this and give the image coordinates. Okay, so it has succeeded in giving our image coordinates. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come up and click this button, and what we're looking for here is an area with minimal signal, minimal dust, things like that. It can be small. I know there's probably a little bit of nebula there, but it works. And we're going to come up to process all processes and spectrographic color calibration. And I'm going to select my sensor, which is 60D. I wasn't using any UVIR, so now I just keep the QE curve to ideal and white reference average spiral galaxy. For our background neutralization, click the region of interest and from preview, and then we'll just drag and drop over that. And what this is going to do, it's going to color calibrate all your stars, as well as it'll make the background object look better. That looks fairly decent. There's not a whole bunch of outliers on the graph, so that looks good. We're going to want to reset. Now we'll click our little paper clip on here and give it an auto stretch. Which was far different actually than my other results. That's really interesting because I've already edited this once. Okay. So now that we've done that, we'll reset it again. Now I am going to kind of cheat a little bit on this. I'm going to use Pixel Math to stretch it, and it'll be Bill's stretch. I tend to like his stretch, so well, let's see, I would say that's a decent result. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the stars from this image. And for that, I'm going to use Star Exterminator. You could also use StarNet++, which I don't have on this, but it is a free option. So we're going to run that. Okay, so now that we've ran Star Exterminator, have our stars image, so we'll just put this down here. And the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to go to process all processes. We'll go to curves. I'm going to give it a slight S curve for a little bit of contrast. Not too much. You don't want to overdo any process here. So when I say slight, I mean slight. That looks pretty good. I'll likely use this again, so I'm going to put that right up there to make it faster. Now I'm going to create a mask. So I'm going to click on Extract Luminance component up here. Go to Process, All Processes, Intensity. And go to Histogram Transformation. I'm going to track our changes to this. And adjust this. And what we're looking for is to make this really bright. That's fairly decent. Just go with that. Now we're going to go to Process, All Processes, Convolution to blur it, because you don't want sharp edges in your mask. And to apply it, we're just going to drag it over here on the edge. It'll show the regions that are protected and the regions that aren't. I'm going to turn that off though, because to me that's horribly distracting. And what I'm going to do now is Process, All Processes, Color Saturation. So we're going to give the image a little more color. Just to make it pop a little bit. Okay, so with that complete, I believe I'm going to take the mask off. Okay, so we wanted to create an HDR image, and what this is going to do is this is going to deal with this real bright area, at least somewhat. And you notice here I'm making very small adjustments on everything. Baby steps with everything. Okay, so this is going to create a new image. Down in here and see kind of what that did. I personally don't go too crazy on anything that I do, but you could probably dim that out quite a bit should you want to. Okay, so now I'm going to go to Process, All Processes, HDR, which is kind of the same thing that we just did. We're going to see what it does though. Yeah, that's not too bad. And then I'm going to go up to Script, Dark Structure Enhance. I always like running this too. Sometimes I back it up though because I don't like the results. We'll just see what it does. Yeah, see, for me that's a little too much. Okay, so I think I'm going to deal with the stars. I'm not going to do too much more with this image, I don't think. So with the stars, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove all the green from them. So we're going to go to SCNR under all processes again, right there. And then we're going to come back to color saturation, reset it, go to the preview, just boost the saturation a little bit, make our stars more colorful. It's always a good thing. As I've said, you know, baby steps in anything. You don't want to overdo any one process. So what we're going to do now is we're going to use pixel math. Reset it. Go to expression editor. And the expression will be $T plus, and what it's going to do, just double click on whatever image you want. Make sure this is your target. It's going to blend the stars back into the, or blend the object back into the stars. Just hit apply. And yeah, that isn't looking too bad to me. I mean, that just shows you the power of stacking. For 2-second exposures out there for less than an hour, this is an absolutely beautiful image. So at this point, I would just save it off into whatever file format you want, like JPEG or anything like that, and we'll call it done. So here's our results. Not bad for just a DSLR on a tripod and manually tracking. Not bad at all. With my framing, I kind of wanted to get all 3 belt stars, but I'm almost wishing I had got the arc that's down below it too, because you can see it a little bit. And we still have a little bit of stacking artifacts in there and stuff too, but we could crop those out from here in whatever program you want to use. Anyways, clear skies, and thank you for watching, and I hope somebody finds this informative and helpful. Until next time, thanks for watching.